I wrote the words, you, when God sees you, God delights in what is and sees only what's true. That you, yes, you, in all of your glory, bring color and rhythm and rhyme to God's story. So be you, fully you. A show stopping review. Live your life in full color, every tint, every hue. And I remember writing those words, and Chelsea, I just wept.
I wept reading those words.
Just wept.
Hey Dropouts, it is Chelsea and I am ecstatic today. Today is just a super special day for me because I am with one of my favorite people from afar, and his name is Matthew Paul Turner. Matthew, welcome to Religious Dropouts. We're so happy you're here.
I am honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
So if you don't know a lot about Matthew Paul Turner, you're about to, but he came into my life through his ability to write the most beautiful books. We've got some on the shelf back here in the studio right now. And but he is an author. He's an incredible, I would say, an influencer. He's a speaker. He's a dad. But he is amazing. And so I'm really excited for you to hear some of his story. And I just stalked him long enough to get him to be a guest on the podcast. So you're welcome to Dropouts for my relentless pursuit of Matthew Paul Turner.
Well, after that build up, I hope I am able to fill fill the words that you have just spoken. So I will do my best.
So why don't we just start, the premise of our show obviously is being a dropout, right? Is people that kind of, we're still connected to spirituality, we're still connected to God, but we've dropped out of this institution or this idea of the box church kind of put us in. And so I'd love to just kind of open up our time with you, of you just sharing with us, like, what was your upbringing like? What was church like for you? Where did your deconstruction maybe start? Like, I know that's a loaded question, but
I was raised in a small town on the eastern shore of Maryland, and I was raised in a independent fundamental Baptist church. Like, I mean, I have told this story a hundred times, but when I was in second grade, I had a Sunday school teacher who burned a Barbie to explain hell. And
was it Mark Driscoll? Was your Sunday school teacher?
No. No. And it was, I mean, what do you do with that? I mean, like, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. Like, I mean, it was a big deal to me because it stayed in my brain, and, I certainly got saved that morning again. And, but that was just like one little Sunday that was just, was a big deal. And, I went to the school as well that was connected to the church. So it was it was 14 years of like condensed independent fundamental Baptist shit. Like, I mean, it was a whole lot for a kid to even know what to do with. And so, like, when you're like trying to walk away from that, you're just trying to walk away from that and into regular evangelicalism.
Right.
I mean, and that was liberal, and that was considered like real out there, depending on what it was I was, checking out. Like, I remember, like, every step in a different direction would cause my family to have a conniption. Like, they would just stomp their feet and they would cry, and it would be this emotional thing. And this was, no, I'm not talking about things like, yes, when I went to my very first movie in a movie theater, my mom cried. Okay. I was 19.
Wow.
I'd never been to a movie theater that, like, I was very, very like, sheltered.
You're not talking about going to your first Pride. You're talking about literally going to the movies, made your family cry.
Right. I mean, it was just your regular run of the mill movie theater. And so, like, I remember my mom finding out and that being a really big deal. But, like, it was also the same thing that when they found out that I was going to a church that believed in predestination. So it was like everything was everything
Yeah,
was
right.
drama. So like you have a after the 14 years of growing up in that stuff, I had another decade and a year or so of just mixed up spiritual Christian spirituality, like just even your basic evangelicalism, that you're trying to understand grace, and it's like the basic your basic 90s. Like, I mean, In the Grip of Grace by Max Lucado was a controversial, life-changing book for me. so,
Yes,
so
yes, yeah, you loved DC Talk.
yeah,
That it was
absolutely. Like, I
yeah,
mean, like that, and but my parents were a little concerned about me loving DC Talk, and so like there
that's
was that. Now,
it was
so
like Metallica
right,
for
right, and so my deconstruction did not. It began in 2005, and it began for very weird reasons. I will admit, but it was after Katrina, after Hurricane Katrina. I just started unpacking all the stuff that I believed. Like, watching what happened to New Orleans, watching this politician who, George Bush, W. Bush, misrepresent all of the things that he had said. Was like, I was the conservative who thought this whole compassionate conservatism was a big deal, and it was so novel. I mean, my goodness, be conservative and be compassionate.
yeah,
Who knew it was even
yeah,
possible? Like,
yeah.
so
No,
like
seriously.
that was a huge thing for me, and I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. And I thought I thought, man, that what a beautiful way to go forward, until I saw what happened and what that looked like. And it looked nothing like compassion. And it looked
Yeah,
nothing like what I wanted my faith to look like.
yeah,
And that was, George W. Bush was the last Republican I voted for. and,
wow,
um, and not that that was any big deal. So I like literally, I jumped to making choices that were for other people. And then I followed that up with trying to fill in the blanks. And I
yeah, yeah,
probably fumbled through filling in the blanks a good bit, but I wanted to vote in favor of others and not
yeah,
for myself. And I knew that I spent a lot, my whole early life up until I was 30,
yeah.
voting for myself. And I didn't want to do that anymore. So
Yeah, it's almost like, and we hear this a lot when we hear stories from people who have gone through what you've gone through, and like are going through deconstruction or actively have like broken apart what they believed their whole life.
yeah.
And it's funny because it never starts with anyone identifying that it's deconstruction. Like
Oh
you're just like, I'm
yeah.
literally just giving a shit about people. But then all of a sudden people around you are like, oh, you don't believe anymore. Oh, you're deconstruct. And you're like, is that what this is? Like,
Yeah.
so it's just
Well, for
crazy
me, it
because
was the slippery slope. We didn't have that word yet.
right.
So
Oh yeah.
and
Right.
I remember
Right.
Rachel Held Evans writing something about what the fundamentalists were right about. And one of the points that she made was that they were right about it being a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We slipped right on down,
oh,
right to
right on down.
Jesus. No, for sure. So as you're filling in the gaps, as you're kind of like making your way through what I would say is like a renewed faith, a different kind of faith
Hmm.
as you're answering some of those questions, along the way you developed a family, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I follow Matthew's ex-wife as we get hear some of this story, if he's willing to share some of that. Is an influencer also on Instagram. I follow her. I love her, by the way.
Oh,
Her name is Jessica. If you
yeah.
look her up, her content is amazing. And but so you somehow along the lines you got married, you have a few kids. So do you want to tell us kind of about like as you're an adult, what kind of happened with your
Yeah.
story?
My deconstruction started like 2, 3 years into being married. I met Jessica while I was the editor of CCM magazine. Um, I fell hook, line, and sinker into it. Like, I mean,
So where was she at that time?
she
Same
was
same thing?
no, she was a getting ready to graduate from the University of Wisconsin and
Oh,
wanting to work in the music industry. And so we met because we actually met over AOL instant message. She
Matthew Paul Turner, what was your username?
no, well, okay, my username was Thew Oak. That was my personal, like and it was Matthew, and
Oh,
then Oak was my grandmother's initials. Okay, so don't laugh, but I wanted
you were woke at the same time.
I it was also the woke. It really was.
Wow. Who would have known? Who would have known where you'd be now
I
had you
know.
created a
But
username?
anyway, so that's how we met, and we, we just hit it off and became best friends and got married. And um
Did her faith change you at all? Like, did
oh
her
my
because
gosh, yes.
time
um
yeah, I was
the thing
wondering.
about Jessica was her she grew up very uh your basic Catholic upbringing in a Midwestern state.
Yes.
And she didn't really become super engaged in like the Jesus things until
Yeah,
college, when she joined, Campus Crusade and whatever.
yeah.
And but the thing about Jessica is that her faith did not have any trauma involved. Like, there was no trauma.
Well,
She
God bless
I
that.
mean, God bless. Like, I mean, she didn't. It was very.
Thank
There
God.
was a simplicity to it.
Yeah.
She was like, it never. It did. Her, like, her friend group always included gay people. Her friend group always included people who didn't agree with her. Her friend group always included people who thought she was a fanatic. Like, it was sort of a little bit out there. And because, I'll never forget, like, one of the first things that she showed me was a photo of her on the front cover of UW's, like, Madison's, like, pop culture magazine, and she's like worshiping Jesus with on the front cover of this. And
Oh
she
my God.
but she also always had this diverse group of friends
Yeah.
that really made her stand out. Like, just it was really a lovely, beautiful thing. And honestly, it made me believe there was a different way. And
Mhm.
so her influence certainly um affected how I was able to quickly embrace different choices, going, like, when it voting for, like, she'd always voted for Democrats. Like, that was never even a thing. Like, so
Yeah.
me voting for somebody different, that was a big step. Like, my again, every
Yeah.
step away from what I was raised was a big,
Was huge.
huge thing.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah, we got married, we had kids, and this whole time, I mean, I had a secret that I was gay. And I don't think that it wasn't. I would not have had the capacity to use that word on any way, shape, or form at any time. Even now, like, saying it out loud sometimes, still, like, I pause for a second, like, like, there's like that blip in my brain that you know get past
Trauma?
the trauma, like, the
Yeah. 100%.
because I knew I wasn't straight. I knew I wasn't straight. And that's how
For
I
forever? Like from
well,
the
I mean, I like, since I was a high school kid. Like, but I mean, I was the kid that everybody is like, if they were going to use the F word, like, the not the FUCK, but the
right.
FA,
Right.
that
Right.
word. If they were going to use it, they were going to probably use it toward me. Like, that was, I
Yeah.
remember that word being thrown out
Yeah.
all the time. And so it I feared that I wasn't straight. And but I was so scared. Like, I mean, there was just no, like, I had no capacity for thinking, like, just keeping everything in the where it was supposed to be, like,
Yeah.
not letting anything out, because the idea of my parents finding out, I would have rather died for that than for that to happen. And
even being an adult, like, you're not talking when you were a teenager, you're talking, like,
oh, I'm
in
talking
your
about
marriage,
my
and, like,
mid-20s.
2 years
Like
ago, like, yeah,
yeah. And so it this it was, I got to a place in my story where I could tell that I was beginning to like become down, become depressed, become like certainly just not focused, just really losing a little bit of myself in the process. Still trying to pull it all together for my kids, trying to
and
pull
this
it.
was before you came out, right, you're talking
Yes,
about?
yes. And so I got to a place when I started writing children's books. My goal was, if I was at a point where I knew, I pretty much assumed that I would never be out. I was never going to come out. And if that was what my story was going to be, I said, what could I do? What could I do to make the story be less scary for other people? How could I help? And so that's when I really became like, I had always like used my blog to like bring up important issues, regarding people who were oppressed, or like people
Yeah,
who the church was always against, kind of thing.
yeah,
But I really made like an intentional effort to use my platform to the best of my ability to bring up conversations that nobody else was talking about, or
yeah,
there was only a handful of people talking about at that time. And that's one of the things that, this was during my time when Rachel and I were pretty close at that point. And Rachel and I had the thing about us, that we had a freedom, because we were not connected to a particular church or a particular denomination. We had a
yeah,
freedom to talk about things that other people were not allowed to talk about, or didn't have the freedom to talk about, but we did. And so it kind of gave us the ability to bring up things that really mattered to us. And I remember, like, there was I remember a post that I did. My very first like huge viral post was something about Duck Dynasty, and what they said about gay people.
oh, yeah, yeah,
um
I remember that whole, I mean, that was, yeah,
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 and it's like, and I remember playing off the word ducking, something like, and using it as the word fucking. I guess I don't know if I'm allowed to say that or not, but like, you can bleep me out if you want to. um
yeah.
it's
All of our episodes seem to become explicit.
so
We do full disclosure on our
yeah,
things now.
but it's so like, I wanted to make the way easier.
Yeah,
But at the same point, I was losing myself in it. I
yeah,
remember I was in the Publix parking lot in like 2015, writing the book When God Made You. And this moment will always stand out for me, because I was writing the part. Yes, that's it. That's the one. I wrote the words, you, when God sees you, God delights in what is and sees only what's true. That you, yes, you, in all of your glory, bring color and rhythm and rhyme to God's story. So be you, fully you. A show stopping review. Live your life in full color, every tint, every hue. And I remember writing those words, and Chelsea, I just wept.
I wept
I mean,
reading
I
those
mean,
words.
just like wept,
Yeah, yeah,
thinking that like not even being sure that a publisher would ever let me put those words in a book. But
but knowing you wouldn't ever be
right,
that for
yeah,
yourself,
we.
like,
But if I could make that, like, and seriously, it was a thing where I was just like, I don't want to be that guy who avoided avoided the secret, or avoided the story. Like, I mean, I
yeah,
didn't want to be that guy. And so that's why it became really important to me to create content that was inclusive and that hopefully gay kids in the church could look at and say, I wonder if he means, do you think he means
Mm,
that? And if given the chance, know that they are loved, that
yeah.
that God delights in who they are. And so, um, fast forward, when Jessica and I we're really kind of diving into the issues in our marriage in 2019, and it took us a year or so to kind of get to a place to know that all of this pain and all of this stuff that we had walked through, that we had to do this really hard thing and separate and divorce. Jessica was out for a walk one day, and came across the house that I live in, that was up for rent. And it was, we were a month and a half into the pandemic,
Yeah.
and the house was like a half a mile from where she lives. And she was like, I just feel like it's a sign. I feel like that this is what we have to do. Um, and and I knew she was right, but still the 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 overwhelming weight of all of those years of just the various Christian bullshits that you
Yeah. Totally.
just all the stuff that you carry.
Yeah.
Oh God, it was like, I mean, even it's so funny how quickly I can feel all of those things again, even just like talking about it. Like
Oh,
I like I it was a like it was hard to see over the burden,
yeah.
because people were saying, well, it's funny, people like, you were just looking for the easy way out. There was nothing easy about.
No, what would have been way easier is to not say a word and to keep taking your family pictures and to keep doing your family,
Right.
like I don't, and I think it's crazy when people say that because I've seen that sometimes on some of your content where some, I mean, over the years, I've
Yeah,
seen like the occasional, and that always shocks me more than anything that anyone would ever think any part of the journey you've taken could be easy
yeah, right.
when you had something so easy.
And
Like,
and it just I think there are so many assumptions that not all church people, but that so many church people make about stories like mine. And it's
yeah.
like, he's walking away from his kids, like he's just like, what a sad testament for his kids to lose a dad. Well, they haven't lost a dad, they got their dad back, if anything. They I am more present than I have ever been. And
Yeah.
so, as hard as that story was, after, I came out publicly. I came out to my family in June on June 10th, 2020, and that was honestly the biggest, hardest, awful thing.
Were you in person with them, Matthew, when you did that?
And I actually could not do it in person. No, it was I did it in video. I created a video, like a 13-minute long video,
Just you?
just me. And I had to send it to them and let them sit with it. That was the only way I could even, because I knew that
There wasn't safety in being
there
in
was
person.
not, and there still isn't safety. Like, there still is no safety net. That there is, um my family is all like, I have three sisters, their families, and my mom and dad, and they have showcased, no ability to, create a space that would even make me feel, welcomed or invited. Like, it's void. Like, I the things that my family has said, the most hateful things to me of anybody else. Like, I mean, I have been, I
I
mean, even
cannot even
some strangers who have been hateful have been way more reasonable, way more like, hey, we can, get to a place where we can just disagree. Um but not with my family. It's been really hard. And
do
so,
they see your kids?
No. My my
Wow.
my dad has not spoken to me in 3.5 years.
Oh my god, I'm so
Um,
sorry.
and one like like I mean, I've talked to my mom a few times, but like the last time we FaceTimed was 1 year ago, like this month. Um, she she wrote 6 months after I came out, she wrote a letter to my children and did not mention me in the letter. And it was like it was and my kids saw right through it.
Oh,
My kids
yeah.
were at an age where they just immediately
Thank God.
they were like my kids were like, "Dad, she didn't mention you." And like when I talked to my mom about that, I mean I confronted
Yeah,
her and it was as if like she didn't get it. She just didn't get it. And again, I don't expect them to get it. Like I'm at a place now where I'm it our relationship had been really hard all the way up and even before I came out. Like,
yeah,
it's always been a difficult path. And I am slowly getting to a place of peace with it. And I just am I know that one day I'm going to get a phone call. Maybe I might get a phone call. I don't know. I might get a phone call to learn that my parents have died or one of my parents have died. Um, I'll eventually hear about it. And
yeah.
I know that that's going to bring up some other stuff, and I know that that's going to be hard. And but yet, I have also done some work toward
Yeah.
being okay when that moment happens.
Absolutely, like, you're not going anywhere with regrets to being open about yourself,
Yeah,
to being open about communication with them, even though you knew it wasn't a safe place. So I totally get that. Like, it's not, but I feel like, unfortunately, it's very sad for them because you and I both know, like,
yeah,
when that moment comes, there's no way there's peace, and God would never bring that peace. Like, they're not gonna have that
yeah. And
with the
and and
idea.
it and I just like the fact that they could. It's one thing for them to give up on me.
Yeah, but
But
your family.
for them to actively give up on my kids and not even like there has been zero fighting on their like it
Right,
there
right.
yeah, I mean the letter was the only thing that ever happened that even was showcased remotely that they wanted to still be in their story, and this was several years ago. And so
Wow.
like it is
So
it was believe it or not, it was on Mother's Day this past year when the that was the last time I communicated with anyone with my family. Like it was this past Mother's Day. And and so like there's been loss, but you know what,
yeah,
Chelsea, every gay person or queer person I have ever met, they have lost something. They it is they have lost somebody, they have
yeah,
lost a whole bunch of
yeah,
somebodies, they have lost jobs, they have lost
yeah,
housing, they have there's always a loss.
yeah.
And so that my family is my loss, and I knew that, I knew that going in, like I knew that that was going to have to be.
Well, and
So
that's probably why you didn't, that was part of that fear, I imagine.
oh my
Like,
god,
I knew
absolutely, yeah.
when I came out as bisexual,
Mhm.
right, I don't have, the same story, but I knew I was gonna lose my career in full-time ministry, but that fear is so different. Even that fear was so hard, let alone the fear of the people that you've had your entire life. Like, that's the
But I
biggest
want to
fear.
go back. It is exactly the same. Your orientation is no different than my orientation. Yeah, I mean, like you like because we do that with uh, being bisexual is no small thing. It is a beautiful thing, and there's absolutely nothing less or more or whatever about it. Like I just I want to because we have to start including bisexuality
Yeah,
completely and fully in the in the narrative,
yeah,
that it's not less or more, it is all
yeah.
included.
I
uh, uh,
appreciate that so much. So I guess your story is one of beauty and redemption, because up to this point, if you're kind of listening and you're tracking along, it feels very dark, right? It feels a little bit devastating. It
Yeah.
feels, but there's so much beauty. And Matthew, I kind of just want you to touch on, like, so fast forward to now, right? I think you said June 10th of 2020.
Is
Was
when I
that right?
came out. June 10th is when I came out to my family. I came out publicly. Jessica and I announced our divorce, and I talked about, or told, came out as gay on July 17th, 2020. And what I was going to say earlier is that
Yeah.
the number of people who took a line from my book, there's a line that's almost at the very end. I had more people say, "You being you is God's dream coming true." And I just like that was a full circle moment for me, because I don't think I realized, Chelsea, how much I did not include myself in that stupid book, or that,
Yeah.
not stupid book, but that those words that I wrote. I included everybody else, and I never included myself ever. So that was it was really a beautiful redemption story for
Yeah.
me. Then I sat down with my therapist 3 weeks later, and and my therapist was like, "You do realize you have not begun to accept yourself, Matthew."
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah.
and that began the journey of dealing with my internalized homophobia, and dealing with this becoming comfortable in this beautiful
Yeah.
gay skin that I was now owning and living in, and wanting to be fully present in my own body.
Yeah.
And so 3.5 years since coming out, I I get to wake up every day and be myself.
Yeah.
And even if I never meet my partner, even if I am, you know, uh, I never get my family back, or like what all those, like it will still be worth every single hardship that I've had to endure, because I get to be myself. I get to be whole. My kids get to experience their dad as his whole self.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
is beautiful and powerful, and I will be forever grateful to the people who allowed me the freedom and the space to do what I had to do, because it was no easy thing for me. Like, I was not able, like, Jessica had to give me, Jessica had to let me go before I
Yeah.
was able to get to a place where I could step into anything else. Like, it
Yeah.
just, and I don't think I've ever really put it that way, but I know that to be true.
Yeah.
She
And your love for her makes that just almost unbearable, knowing
That's,
you know what I mean? So that I can't even imagine working through.
and her love for me, like, knowing how much,
Exactly.
like, it just, like, that is,
Exactly.
like, I her grace toward me has been so overwhelming at times that early on, I struggled to even know what to do with it. Like no,
Yeah.
like I didn't trust it. Like
Like, you should
like
never talk.
there had to be an alternative
Yeah.
motive. There had to be, some
Well, look
passive
how you
aggressive.
were raised in the church.
Right.
She should
Exactly.
raise you in the church, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, that's her, like, I know we talk about it, and sometimes when you talk about things on the internet, like, it can get packaged in a way where people might question whether or not it's, like, legitimate, or if it's, like, real, or
Oh,
like,
for sure.
and
Yeah.
it's you know like, I what you see on the internet is about as damn close to the real thing. I mean, do we get it? Do we agree on every little thing? Absolutely not. But we co-parent really, really well. We talk.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to her 4 or 5 times today, just today. Like, I mean, and it's so like it's
Please tell her we love her.
yeah, I definitely will. And so it really is very much the story that people see on the internet, that it's not that's there's nothing fake about it. Like it
Yeah.
is she has been really good to me and kind to me, um and I've been good to her. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Jessica, she shared this video, and so we're gonna give space for a second because Matthew is very special, and we're so happy to have him. But he doesn't get out of keyboard warriors, and you guys know, as religious dropouts, we get him all the time, right? We share him with you. We actually got this 1-star little crochet thing made for us because of the hilarious keyboard warriors that we get on this show. And so, of course, we've asked our guests if they're comfortable and able to share. So let's give some space. We're going to give time for keyboard warriors. Keyboard warriors for Christ. All right. So, Matthew, we opened the keyboard warriors segment by bringing up Jessica's video. So, can
yeah.
you just give some context, and then please, by all means, share away?
Yeah, so Jessica threw a birthday party. I just turned 50, and there was a big party. Jessica, like, you know, we had all my friends came over, but one of the gifts that she and the kids gave me was this little bag of cards that she and the kids had written 50 reasons why they love me.
And we'll link the video, you guys, in the
And
show notes. It's just beautiful.
and she just like caught like blips of my reaction as I was like reading through them. And Chelsea, like, I had zero concept of this happening, and I boohooed like a baby. Well, then she took
I would too. It was
I mean,
beautiful.
it
It was
really like,
beautiful.
and it was just it was the sweetest thing. Like, as like, I don't know, like, just the when you realize that your kids see you
Yeah.
and fully see you and notice things that you don't even think that they notice, like, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, she put this video about like this gift that she had given me on my 50th birthday, and it ends up like going crazy viral. Like, we've had a
As it
few
should.
things we've had a few things go viral before, but not quite like this. Like, I mean, I think it's like almost closing in on 10 million now, 10 million views.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh.
unreal.
Well, I think she put the words in the video too, breaking down like a tiny piece of your story of just saying like my
Yeah,
ex-husband.
I mean, it was like a little blip of the story. Like, it's this much of the
Yeah.
story, but it had like a
Yeah.
really beautiful pay.
It
Like,
was
I
so
mean,
beautiful.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a well-made reel for an
Yeah.
Instagram, like, that kind of
Yep.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's but like of course, all of the comments at the very beginning are just so awesome. Like, they're
Yeah.
just beautiful and they're supportive. And then, by day 3, you start getting comments like, I don't know, from Nerman Gratis.
I love their
I
names
know.
too. Like,
Like, what? My heart breaks for the children. Damaged for life due to a grown man manipulation. Let's not make this normal. This is wrong on so many levels. There are plenty of us who could have done the same thing. Wait, is are they coming out? Like, are they?
I think today.
um, could have done the same thing, but we choose to live out truth, even if it meant being lonely and alone to the end. I mean,
Nerman, they're gay for sure. There's no way that's a straight comment.
I
I'm
mean,
just telling you.
right? Like, I mean, that's not only did they come out, but they were like, they make like, it's the assumptions. And I'll tell you, when people make assumptions about my kids,
No.
it is such a, and that's a thing that Christians do.
Yeah.
They make
They're so
assumptions.
worried about the kids.
Yeah, they're always worried. Like, and it's a low blow, condescending, manipulative way of them making a point and getting
Yeah.
a dig in that they don't think you could ever,
Exactly. Yeah,
survive.
exactly.
And the fact that Like, did they watch the video? Like, my kids are right there. Like, I mean, kids.
Right. Do they see your daughter, like, putting on rock concerts
I
and,
mean,
like, "Your kids look real good." Like, they
yeah,
look like they're doing just fine.
yeah.
Do they see the
They are
family
doing.
Halloween
They,
costume?
they are privileged. Let me tell you. Like, I mean, uh,
Didn't you run into, like, Amy Grant on Halloween? Like, come on,
yeah,
your kids are
we
really
we did. Yeah, we did.
in your full carnival costumes. Like, come on, your kids are
I mean,
living.
I'm dressed as a clown. I mean, dressed as a clown, and I run into Amy Grant. She didn't even I
Did
mean,
you did
Amy
you
and I
get
have
an
known each
autograph
other a
or
little.
no?
Say that again.
Did you get a quick autograph or no?
Oh no, no, no. I mean, it's like, I mean, I've known Amy for a while. Like, I mean, it's so funny, but she did not recognize me. And when she did, she was
Oh
like,
my
I
god,
was like, you may not want to hug me. I am a, and she, Amy's
I'm
gonna
so
hug me.
dead.
So it's,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Awesome.
beautiful.
And it's funny because I didn't even recognize that the keyboard warrior even really talked about your kids. And that's literally what the whole comment was about because I was
Yeah.
so caught off guard by them coming
I
out. You know what I
know.
mean?
I mean, it
I was
just
so
like,
caught by their queerness that I didn't even see the real.
it is, it's funny. And I'll tell you, at the in the beginning, whenever somebody, like, there were a lot of people that would use my kids as a, as a tool for their own good. I remember
Yeah,
this website in Indiana, this conservative Christian pro-life website
we're
used my
Indiana.
story, and shamed me for leaving my kids, or assumed that I had left my kids, and then put a donate button at the bottom for them to raise money to, for Indiana families.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
but
Well, let's say this. I know your time's coming because you have to go get your kids.
yeah,
So
I have to go get my kids because
yeah, you've
I'm so
abandoned them.
absent in their life that I have to go pick them up from school. So
Yeah. You've abandoned your family,
yeah.
so fuck off and go get your children. But before you do that, I just want to say that, like, genuinely, it's funny because I had been telling our co-host who couldn't make it today, Brandon, he's here in spirit, but I was when he was asking about getting you on the show, and I was saying, like, I'm just gonna keep blowing up his DMs and we'll make something work. And sometimes he'd ask me almost like the importance of certain guests to us, right? Because we're like very intentional about who we get on the show. And I think it's just so important for me to let you know that, like, when I was coming out, which was just literally episode 5 of this podcast, and this is season 2, but episode 5 of season 1, so literally in June of this
Oh
past
my
year,
god.
just came out. But this book, this look, I have like a million copies, okay, because I'm like so gay, literally and figuratively. But reading through that book, I remember for the first time when I saw it, because I loved Rachel Held Evans, loved her content. That's how I found you, through her content and stuff. And I remember reading it and thinking that not only were you speaking to me, a 32-year-old woman,
Mm.
but I felt like for one of the first times between um Untamed by Glennon Doyle and this children's simple book, I remember reading the pages to my daughter who was 4 at the time and believing for just a second that, like, maybe I could be free. Like, maybe God would still love me, and that, like, maybe the world would still be okay if I was true to my identity because of the words that you spoke over me in this book. And since then, I've been sharing it with everybody that I know, but I've noticed a trend that when I share it or when someone says to me, they say the same things I just said to you, was that they felt that freedom, that they felt like. And so I don't know all of what your mission was when writing that book, but I just hope that you genuinely know, like, not only has it changed my life, but I think that it is the most beautiful truth for us to know. And I don't know how comfortable I would have been coming out or how much I would have believed in God's story for me had I not read those words. Like, I really don't know. And so they were so informative, like so important to me. But apart from those words, is there anything that you can kind of leave us with? Like, we have so many queer people that watch the show. We get DMs almost on the daily from people who are afraid of coming out to their families, or they have come out and they have no contact with their families.
Mm.
We have so many people, Matthew, that are younger than you. Your cowboy hat does make you look 20. Okay. So I'm just saying, but we'll consider that picture when we link Matthew's in their profile for you. But anyways, but no, just kidding. But all jokes aside, we we have a lot of people that listen to the show that have such a story of pain and trauma like yours. And I just wonder, from someone that gets them, that sees them the way that God does, is there something that you might leave with them, or something that they can take with them from this episode from you?
Hmm.
Anything.
I I know this to be true. Every one of our stories are very different, and our stories are dependent on where we grow up, the people who are involved in them, the people who are our friends. Some of us don't have any friends, and there is a a big loneliness. Regardless of what your story looks like, I know that God delights in who you are. And I know that God cares deeply about where you are, who you are, and where you're going. But I also know that the realities of our world is that it's scary for some people to do what I did, and that I am a very privileged individual to have the capacity and the people and um, the support of a whole bunch of people. Even though I get a whole bunch of hate, I also get a whole bunch of love. And there's just other people who are in my situation or in similar situations, and they don't have that. And so if I can encourage anybody, it's that reaching out to one safe person
Mhm.
can be a lifeline.
Yeah.
It might not be enough of a lifeline at first, but it can be a lifeline.
Mhm.
And if all of those lifelines would hang on, would latch themselves to those lonely people who are just looking for some way out, we could all help each other find the path forward.
Yeah.
Chelsea, I don't like giving easy answers. Like I don't like, it's because it's not easy for a lot of people. And so like, because I know that it's not easy for a lot of people, I'm okay with leaving it kind of as it's a difficult path. It was
Yeah.
difficult for me, and I had a whole bunch of support.
And it's still
It's
difficult.
still
You know?
difficult. Like, I mean, and it's still difficult. And so there are people growing up in very like small towns that go to really conservative churches, and they're listening to this podcast, and they're like, they want to come out so bad, like, but they just, there's the way forward, it feels overwhelming. The only thing that I will say is that I promise you one thing, that is, it is it's way scarier on this side
Yeah.
of the telling than it is on the other side of the
Amen.
telling. You might lose
Amen.
a whole bunch, but you're going to be a whole lot less afraid. And
Nothing compared to the freedom.
yeah, it really, there is a joy, there is like, it's nothing's perfect. It's not, you're not going to have rainbows fall down on you all the time. I mean, it's real life, but like, my God, like, I'll never forget one, a friend of mine, well, Jen Hatmaker. I I said, I reached out to her and I said,
I'm sure as well. We love her. Love her.
I reached out to Jen when I told my parents, and I said, well, I told my parents today, and I'll never forget. And she was like, "You survived the telling,"
Oh, amen.
and I like, you will survive the telling. Your friendships might not survive it. Your relationship with your family may not survive it, but you will survive the telling. And so I survived the telling, and I believe that you can too. So,
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Matthew. We love you. Thank you for being in this space with us.
thank you for having me. It means a lot.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Religious Dropouts podcast. Take a moment to relax your shoulders, unclench your jaw, and take a deep inhale. As you exhale, focus on releasing any remaining tension in your physical body. We're so glad that you are here with us today for this conversation. We hope you are able to laugh, to unpack some of your past experiences and trauma, and that you are able to find some hope to look forward to the future. We'd love for you to connect with us on social media and at our new website, religiousdropouts.com. And as always, we would love for you to share this podcast with a friend or anyone you know who might need to understand how good it feels to be a dropout. You are so loved. Have a great week.